Ma and Pops, welcome you guys to a Friday edition of the Watch Party here on the Watch List. Glad you guys are here. You know what? It seems like it's been a long week. I was telling my kid this. It seems like it's been a long week. When you look up, it feels like it's been a fast week at the same time. Maybe it's just the gravity of the news. Maybe it's all the stuff we've been taking. Maybe it's the things that we've been paying attention to that just I don't feel like really paying attention to. It's just tiring. So I think you guys may have noticed. If you guys are following some of the posts that are now happening, I decided to start doing more on the YouTube page with it. But it's it's the second day in a row. Sorry, bro. It's a Nas kind of day. And someone suggested the purple Nas energy drink I should drink since yesterday. It's gonna be loud. Since yesterday I had the blue one. Trust me, bro. I've had them all. There's the green apple, there's the purple, and there's also the original blue, which is actually orange inside of that can. So grab your adult beverages. It's a Friday. We're headed into the weekend. If you're at work, don't let them see it. As a matter of fact, I don't want to get anybody fired. Don't do that there. But just wait until you get home and check out all the posts and videos and the stories that I'll be putting up later from all the stories that we go through. Until then, happy Friday, everybody. We're only 2 or 3 days away from the best damn day of the week, that is. But still, a lot has been going on. As I point out in the titling here for today's show, there's updates on just about everything that we've been talking about, pretty much regularly have been talking about. I saw my nerds have been here. Actually, my mother is not here today, in case you guys are trying to find her. She decided not to. I Smoke and I Know It Things says, my hubby swears by the Blue Nas. The Blue Nas is the good original, but you can't have too many of them. I kind of get tired of the same taste. And when I actually go on to drink things like actual adult beverages, beers, I can never drink the same thing if I'm having more than one. I can't. I don't like drinking the same thing. I know. No energy drinks. I'm expecting these answers, but I only have like one every 2 weeks. This has been a week. All right, you guys. We'll see if I make it. Let's go ahead and get started. I'll let some of you guys file in because I know it takes a couple of minutes at times. I know the uploading and the notification processes all go kind of crazy. So if you guys were with us yesterday on the stream, you saw some of the most important things that I felt we should be talking about when it comes to our gun violence situation in this country, as everyone else has been focusing on only one. I mean, one for the whole damn year, what it seems like that they feel like focusing on. But there has been some resolution to that particular one. And I was tussling with myself over this. I was like, it's literally everywhere. I'm looking to ignore it. It isn't important enough for me to have this debate about who a piece of shit was. I don't need to have that debate. We know the facts. But there is updates in what is it they've discovered. And if it was any other situation, I think we'd at least be talking about the suspect involved. How about we start here?
All watching that. Yeah. JD Vance was supposed to be with you. He went out to be with Charlie Kirk's family and to get the body back to his hometown in Arizona. And you said you were going to award him the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which was very nice of you. Any updates on the suspect?
Yeah. Can I always say, I think, just to protect us all, and so Fox doesn't get sued and we all don't get sued and everything else. But I think with a high degree of certainty, we have him in custody, right? In custody. Everyone did a great job. We worked with the local police, the governor. Everybody did a great job. You know, getting somebody that you start off with absolutely nothing. And we started off with a clip that made him look like an ant that was almost useless. We just saw there was somebody up there. And so much work has been done over the last 2.5 days. You know, it's amazing, actually, when you start off with that and then all of a sudden you get lucky or talent or whatever it is. But yeah, I think we're in great shape.
Mr. President,
he's in custody.
So as being one of the first people to announce the shooting from the other day, also Donald Trump sat in on the Fox and Friends couch to announce that they had arrested a suspect. So did the Utah governor, and he did with a little bit more flair, I guess, is what he wanted.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
We got him. On the evening of September 11th, a family member of Tyler Robinson reached out to a family friend who contacted the Washington County Sheriff's Office with information that Robinson had confessed to them or implied that he had committed the incident. This information was relayed to the Utah County Sheriff's Office and scene investigators at Utah Valley University. This information was also conveyed to the FBI. Investigators reviewed additional video footage from UVU surveillance and identified Robinson arriving on UVU campus in a gray Dodge Challenger at approximately 8:29 a.m. on September 10th, in which he is observed on video in a plain maroon t-shirt, light-colored shorts, a black hat with a white logo, and light-colored shoes. When encountered in person by investigators in Washington County on September 12th, in the early morning hours, Robinson was observed in consistent clothing with those surveillance images. Investigators interviewed a family member of Robinson who stated that Robinson had become more political in recent years. The family member referenced a recent incident in which Robinson came to dinner prior to September 10th, and in the conversation with another family member, Robinson mentioned Charlie Kirk was coming to UVU. They talked about why they didn't like him and the viewpoints that he had. The family member also stated Kirk was full of hate and spreading hate. The family member also confirmed Robinson had a gray Dodge Challenger.
Lining up all of the evidence and all the storylines behind it. But as you can see, a family member heard some information and decided to go ahead and come forward. And I think either he turned himself in or they went to find him, whichever the case was. But, so people, of course, quickly jumped and said, who is Tyler Robinson? What does he look like? Because we've seen the kind of rhetoric that's been happening the past couple of days. There's Tyler Robinson and his mugshot, the suspect in this here killing. I mean, it's kind of what you would expect. But as they pointed out, there was a lot of hate in his heart. He had these issues with Charlie Kirk. Things were looking like it all lines up with who this guy is and maybe even potentially his motivations and his anger behind it. So I just wonder, since there's been so much rhetoric that even that I've been looking to avoid, I just want to ask Nancy Mace, has she come forward yet to apologize?
This shit ends. Like, enough is enough. And now I have to deal with real safety concerns. It sounds like the shooter was a tranny or pro-tranny. And just because I want to protect women, that I'm worried about getting murdered? Are you fucking kidding me? It's out of control, and enough is enough. And I'm going to double down on this. I'm going to be more vigilant than ever. I'm going to be louder than I've ever been until this shit stops. It's got to stop. This shit is.
Nancy Mace is a clown. She's an absolute clown. So I guess now the new approach to getting more attention, which is Nancy Mace's only objective in her life, is to then cuss every other word. I'm a congresswoman, so I should start cussing at every moment possible because that'll get more attention. Anyways. Nancy Mace decided to push more of the narratives that would help fuel this whole fire and also push her name in the forefront because people would have to then talk about her more. I wonder if she's going to keep talking now that other information has come forward. Now, by the way, the reasons that even in my case, I'm talking about who the suspect is because people always wonder, then what are those motivations? I want to pause for a second because people always want to wonder what's the motivations. What is the reason we want to know the motivations? We never really take that next step and ask that question. What would be the reason we want to know those motivations? Because we want them possibly, I know this isn't really the thought, is to maybe prevent these things from happening. Maybe go to those types of folks, see if we can change those kind of narratives that lead people to these types of things. It's what everyone assumed right when it happened. It's these lefties that don't like any discourse from someone who doesn't like discourse, but still, it's these lefties and all they want to do is violence. Assumptions are made because, that's the whole purpose. But the one thing that's constant, generally, younger, adult, male, white guy, we're seeing that. But as we're looking for motivations, the governor of Utah still was asked that question. And, he didn't have much of an answer, but still it was asked.
Did he discuss a motive?
I can't answer that right now. Yeah, thank you. Over here.
He can't answer it right now. Doesn't mean that he doesn't have any of that information. But when asked about whether or not he has any of these idea of the motive behind it, no, not really. But weird, because right afterwards, as they're talking about some of the evidence that they picked up from maybe these engravings on these bullets, he seemed to lean a little bit more towards feeling like he's hinting at what he believes the motive was.
How do you interpret the engravings on casing?
Well, I will leave that up to you to interpret what those engravings mean. I think the clearest one that says "catch fascist," there's not. And by the way, that's like catch like a ball, catch this. That's I think that speaks for itself.
Governor.
It's weird. It was really fast. He went from having nothing he could say about the motive to then having something to say about the motive, even in that same answer. I mean, I don't really have. I'm gonna let you guys leave it up to your interpretation of what the motive is. But considering it says "catch fascist" on it, I'm gonna say that maybe it speaks for itself, and you guys should actually take that as to what you think it means. Okay. Everyone does it. Everyone goes to try and figure out what the motives are, and then once those motives are discovered, or even when they're not discovered, or even when they are discovered, they still go to, well, it's still other people's fault, not the fault of the fact that we flooded this place with guns and that we like to shoot each other all the time with them, or the fact that for the 1.5 to 2 days since that shooting happened, there's been a flood of people talking about how they just want to go to war. I want to shoot the next person that I perceive to be someone that I don't like because I'm crying over this guy I didn't know. But this governor of Utah wanted to make sure that we're dispelling all this stuff. He wanted not to talk about any motives right before he talked about motives. So here's something that makes absolutely no sense and has nothing to do with it based off of what it is that we saw. A picture from 2017 that's also circulating. It's potentially, I guess, the Charlie Kirk alleged shooter, dressed in a Halloween costume in 2017. Man, that's like 8 years ago. Dressed up in a Donald Trump Halloween costume. Let's start assuming off of that too. It's one of those things where we get this opportunity to start just wildly speculating for the sake of blaming other folks for what it is that this guy did. But apparently, based off the engravings on that bullet, he felt Charlie Kirk was a hateful fascist. So I think the narratives are going to continue with folks talking about how they want to start civil wars and find the first liberal that they see. And oh my God, you guys really want it, with spit jumping out of their mouth and blood seeping from their eyes. Because, that's what we actually want when it comes to these things. And seeing it happen live on TV and seeing the repeated videos of it happening over and over, it kept digging that point home for so many people about how they want to see it. So another pause really fast, you guys. It's telling to me that we watched black and brown folks be murdered on camera for decades. And many times we watch that happen, and we do it for the sake of trying to convince people who celebrate it to maybe start caring about it. I mentioned this the other day. Lately, we've been watching children and innocent folks in Palestine being starved to death. And then when a little bit of any kind of resources show up, they're getting shot at with target practice. We're watching people being maimed. We're watching bombs explode their bodies apart. We're watching their family members cry over them. We're watching them literally carrying bags of pieces of their loved ones with blood dripping out of it. And it's weird that it hasn't convinced the people who continue to celebrate that genocide that's happening over there, that celebrate our funding of it. But it's weird when we see blood come out of this guy, that there's all this attention about how we want to make sure enough people don't see it. I'm not going to run the video, but the Utah governor also said, I think people need to stop watching that. They need to stop watching it. Fine. I agree. Maybe we should stop watching it. But the purpose of all these videos, that even folks who are in support of stopping this genocide that we're funding and supporting, um, we're doing it for the sake of hoping that people who have no heart and no soul will maybe one day go, okay, this dead child is the one that's going to make me start caring. Um, it hasn't happened yet. I wanted to stop doing it a long time ago. I almost feel like people may wonder why I don't post that stuff. It's not because I don't see the genocide that's happening and call it what it is. It's because I don't think I need to put that murder porn up for people who get off from watching people that they hate be dismantled like that. It's just what they enjoy. They're not going to change their minds on it. They're just not. They go home and celebrate it more and say, we need more of that. Just like they do with these police body cam videos. And we hope that maybe one day somebody's going to care enough or say, man, look at the payday that guy's going to get. That dog chewed his leg up so much. Look at that cop tase him 4 times. Man, it's great. He's going to get $1 million. I just want to reset and make sure we understand, even the people who support this stuff, we're forced to feel like we have to show you the trauma that people go through and the traumatic experiences that we then internalize and see to potentially and hopefully convince people who hate us to maybe stop hating us. Maybe we need to start understanding and accepting that some of these people are who they're telling us they are. That's my aside. Let's go back to this Utah governor who's ironically talking about how he wants the violence to end, even though he insinuated that, it's a one-sided thing.
I want you to look at how Utahns reacted the last 2 nights. There was no rioting. There was no looting. There were no cars set on fire. There's no violence. There were vigils and prayers and people coming together to share the humanity. And that, ladies and gentlemen, I believe is the answer to this. We can return violence with violence. We can return hate with hate. And that's the problem with political violence, is it metastasizes, because we can always point the finger at the other side. And at some point, we have to find an off-ramp, or it's going to get much, much worse. But see, these are choices that we can make. History will dictate if this is a turning point for our country.
Will the history dictate this turning point for our country? And will he maybe, start focusing his attention on the people who are the biggest microphones and the biggest platforms that continue to perpetuate this hate and division? We've seen people dispelling all the lies that are told about how glorious Charlie Kirk was, and also talking about how Democrats are the ones who are doing all this divisive talk. So if he really means what he says, which are, great words, we need to stop all this hate, because violence begets more political violence, right? I just wish he'd tell the guy who keeps pushing this.
Radicals on the right as well. We have radicals on the left. People are watching all of these videos and cheering. Some people are cheering that Charlie was killed. How do we fix this country? How do we come back together?
I'll tell you something that's going to get me in trouble, but I couldn't care less. The radicals on the right oftentimes are radical because they don't want to see crime. They don't want to see crime.
Worried about the border.
They're saying, we don't want these people coming in. We don't want you burning our shopping centers. We don't want you shooting our people in the middle of the street. The radicals on the left are the problem. And they're vicious and they're horrible and they're politically savvy. Although they want men and women sports, they want transgender for everyone. They want open borders. The worst thing that happened.
Radicals on the right is.
What the fuck does that mean? The radicals on the right, they're only radicals because they want to stop the violence. So what are they doing? What makes them radical? Are they killing people? Did they kill Democratic state Congress people up in Minnesota? Did they attack Nancy Pelosi's husband? And did you celebrate it? I'm just trying to remember. I'm just trying to figure out, as he says, there's radicals on the right, but it's going to get me in some trouble because it's those lefty radicals that are the problem. Right-wing radicals are not the problem. What are they doing? Oh, all they're doing, they just want closed borders. That makes them a radical? I thought that's mainstream. I thought the entire country voted for you because of that. They keep saying all these things that don't make any sense, that don't match up from one stage to the next. But right now, what he needs, because he sucks and everyone knows how much he sucks, is more political violence. Do not forget that. It's reasons why he sent tanks into Washington, D.C. It's the reason why he wants to continue to keep the National Guard in Los Angeles, and he's threatening Chicago and threatening Nashville and threatening every city that he can, so that one day maybe somebody will start fucking fighting back, and then he'll go, look at these radicals, as he does radical thing after radical thing after radical thing. One of the things he said those left-wing nuts do is shoot people in the middle of the street. You mean the way that you said when you were running for office a long time ago, I could stand in the middle of Park Avenue, Fifth Avenue, and shoot someone, and then my supporters will still be there? That guy said left-wing radicals shoot people in the middle of the streets, as he celebrated a hypothetical of him doing just that. Why listen to this guy? They need division. They need deaths. This guy was dancing at a baseball game after Charlie Kirk got shot. This guy, when asked, how you doing after Charlie Kirk died, he goes, I'm doing pretty, I'm holding up great. They asked him in this same interview about what he was doing when he found out. And he said, you know what? I was actually about to announce this Rose Garden pave over moment, and he got to talking about how glorious the Rose Garden is going to be. Donald Trump doesn't give two shits about Charlie Kirk. Donald Trump cares about what he can do with Charlie Kirk, because he's a fascist. I'll run this last video of the Utah governor, because maybe it's a question that people like me were asking, why they were so hell-bent and focused on this particular shooting when we ignored everything else.
I don't want to get too preachy, but I think it's important that we, with eyes wide open, understand what's happening in our country today. I've heard people say, well, why are we so invested in this? There's violence happening all across our country, and violence is tragic everywhere, and every life taken is a child of God who deserves our love and respect and dignity. This is certainly about the tragic death, political assassination of Charlie Kirk. But it is also much bigger than an attack on an individual. It is an attack on all of us. It is an attack on the American experiment. It is an attack on our ideals. This cuts to the very foundation of who we are, of who we have been, and who we could be in better times. Political violence is different than any other type of violence for lots of different reasons. One, because in the very act that Charlie championed of expression, that freedom of expression that is enshrined in our founding documents, in having his life taken in that very act, makes it more difficult for people to feel like they can share their ideas, that they can speak freely. We will never be able to solve all the other problems, including the violence problems that people are worried about, if we can't have a clash of ideas safely.
So it turned into another, shrine to nothing that Charlie Kirk believed in. Again, it's a discussion I didn't want to get involved with. But obviously we see where he stands and where he wanted to take this entire story to deify someone who didn't believe in any of that stuff, who celebrated other folks' deaths. I don't have to get into it. You guys know. Actually, the people that say they don't believe that, they know too. They just need a cover, and that governor is providing it. So there's that. How about we keep paying attention to the things that this administration is looking to cover up, the things that Donald Trump didn't want us to know more about. Did you guys see this? Did you guys notice? Remember we talked last week about Speaker Mike Johnson talking about the FBI and Donald Trump. This crossed my mind, and the only reason I'm playing Moskowitz, Representative Moskowitz now talking about it is because I was wondering, I said, am I the crazy person that's not looking to just let this go?
There was a significant event this week in which this committee has jurisdiction over. The Speaker of the House, the third highest ranking U.S. official, third in line to be the president, looked into the TV cameras and told us that the current president of the United States was an FBI informant. I consider that to be gigantic news. And I'm just curious, have we reached out to the FBI, to Kash Patel, to confirm whether the president was at any time an FBI informant? I only say that because the Speaker of the House obviously gets significant briefings. He gets briefings that we do not get as regular members. And so I think this is something that we need to hear definitively. Before Kash Patel comes, we should clear up, maybe that we should send a letter to him to find out if the president was an informant. And if he was an informant, is that because he was working with the FBI after he was hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein? Did he turn because he got caught with Jeffrey Epstein? You know, when you're an FBI informant, there are lots of questions about how you became an FBI informant. And then how long was he an FBI informant? When did his service to the FBI stop, you know, being a member of the deep state? When did he stop doing that?
Judge Moskowitz asked these questions with this level of sarcasm, but it all actually makes sense. You don't just walk up and call the FBI and go, hey, FBI, I'd like to be an informant. I think someone got on that plane, and then you're suddenly an FBI informant. There's a lot that goes into that. They have to actually trust that you know anything and reasons why you might. What did he know then? We just moved right along afterwards. Because when people called out Mike Johnson and his extreme lie over that whole thing, he ran up to Manu Raju and whispered into this microphone. So you really have to strain to hear him, because he was suddenly meek and not talking so much more about how Donald Trump was this FBI informant. That's actually a big deal, especially since a big name person like that, at whatever point before he was president, was an FBI informant. If anybody heard that a celebrity was an FBI informant, that's a big deal. But, you know, this was his response. I got more from also Jared Moskowitz, but here, watch this.
What do you mean by that? What I was referring to in that long conversation was what the victim's attorney said. More than a decade ago, President Trump kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago. He was one of the only people, one of the only prominent people, as everyone has reported, not President Trump, but everybody about him, that he was willing to help law enforcement go after this guy who was a disgusting child abuser, sex trafficker, all the allegations. That's what they heard. So the president was helpful in that. I don't know if I use the right terminology, but that's common knowledge, and everybody knows that. So this is much ado about nothing.
Did the president tell you this specifically about his involvement?
I was recounting what others have said. The president and I have talked about the Epstein evils many times. He's as disgusted by it as everybody else. He has long had a history of acknowledging that, and he has said repeatedly he wants everything to come out, all credible information, everything for the American public to decide.
Was he ever asked to wear a wire or anything like that?
I have no idea. No, I'm not saying that. I have no information about that whatsoever. I was repeating what has been common knowledge for a long time. The president was helpful in trying to get Epstein, for the law enforcement to go after Epstein. That's always been my understanding. That's common knowledge. It's the public's understanding. I was not breaking news there. Okay, what I'm trying to emphasize is that the president is as disgusted about this as everyone is, all people of good conscience. We heard from the victims last week. It was gut-wrenching to hear their accounts. Many of them came out here and did it to a broader audience, to the public. But there's as many as 1,000 other victims, hundreds of young women, now some of them middle-aged women, who were subjected to these abuses for a long, long time, and justice is long overdue. So we're not just investigating Epstein and what happened, but why the justice system failed these women for so long. That is why the House Oversight Committee is on this so aggressively. And as you saw, the latest developments, I think Chairman Comer and some other members are going down to Florida. They're going down to the Epstein estate to look at visitor laws at the estate. By the way, none of this is encompassed in the discharge petition, Gambit. This is what the Oversight Committee is tasked to do. It is what they are doing in a bipartisan fashion. You have very aggressive.
Okay, yeah, sure, yeah. Then he moves on and starts deflecting and talking about all things that they're not doing that he really wants done. But again, so this guy decided to have some kind of an excuse-ridden diatribe about how it was just a prominent person that worked for the FBI. Do you really believe that Mike Johnson doesn't know the difference between someone who says, hey, I have a tip for you, versus being an FBI informant? An FBI informant, maybe he used the wrong terminology. Maybe Mike Johnson doesn't know the difference between informant and tipster. Everyone knows if you have to kick, as he said, Jeffrey Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago, then you're close with him. Why would you be just this small tipster who somehow a little bit helps? And if Donald Trump wasn't an informant, but then helped extensively, he said he's not breaking any news. If he helped extensively with this investigation, what did he help with? What did he tell? How was the FBI informed from Donald Trump, who knew Jeffrey Epstein and said he was his close friend, who signed his birthday book, who had explicit, suggestive images in that birthday book? What kind of things could he tell him? Donald Trump has been in front of cameras already talking about how he knows that Larry Summers and that Bill Clinton and all these people have been on the plane and been to the island. Did he tell the FBI this? Hey, where's the records? You know, Mike, how you can give us those records of all the things that Donald Trump told them? He can release those files that you're still hiding, those files that you keep saying are moot and we don't need to release them. As a matter of fact, all we need is all the things that we've already released that everyone already knew before you released them. And people keep telling you over and over again. He doesn't care that everyone sees that he's lying. He's just going to talk long enough until people start snoozing, go, okay, Mike, shut the fuck up. I get it. You're not saying anything. I understand. But there's some new developments. I'm going to skip the second Jared Moskowitz clip. He basically said some of the similar stuff, but he's trying to call them out for the ridiculousness of this approach. But do you know what's now happening? That same Ghislaine Maxwell, who was Jeffrey Epstein's accomplice, and as in some of the victims say, the lead person in this child sex trafficking ring, it has now been revealed that many emails were communicated between her and Epstein well after they said that they've separated and they're no longer talking about this stuff. Similarly to the way that Donald Trump said he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago, as Mike Johnson likes to say. But these reports actually are showing so much more. And this isn't even anywhere near the things that we're looking to get. Here's Lisa Rubin. She was on MSNBC.
Simone, you and I were talking before we began, and I said that the Bloomberg reporting didn't much surprise me because although these were several thousand emails from a Yahoo account owned by Jeffrey Epstein, we have seen emails between the two of them in civil litigation, emails that have been unsealed. And one of them that has stuck with me that I have a picture of in my phone because it bothered me so much was Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein talking about Virginia Giuffre. She is perhaps the most famous victim and unfortunately died by suicide earlier this year. In 2015, I just want to pause there because that is a decade plus after Ghislaine Maxwell is telling Todd Blanche her work for Jeffrey Epstein has mostly wrapped up. This is the conversation that they have from Epstein to Maxwell. You can issue a reward to any of Virginia's friends, acquaintances, family that come forward and help prove her allegations are false. And then he continues to detail what he thinks are her strongest or most damaging allegations. And there are two of them. But the fact that they are having that conversation in 2015, as Ghislaine Maxwell is involved in a defamation lawsuit against Virginia Giuffre, Jeffrey Epstein behind the scenes, still at that point uncharged by the Southern District of New York, telling Ghislaine Maxwell secretly, you can pay money to people who say that Virginia is lying.
Isn't isn't it weird how these liars, Ghislaine Maxwell, who's now again in that minimum security prison spa camp at the behest of Donald Trump, who said that, I may even pardon her. Let's not forget where we are. Despite all the talk about Charlie Kirk, let's come back to the important stuff. So as we're seeing this now unfold, how long these folks continue to communicate in order to downplay and silence victims, witnesses, anybody else that could have known things about this. But these emails show just how extensive these conversations were still had when the dude was already busted, had been busted for a while, and apparently been kicked out of Mar-a-Lago so many years ago, but they're still coordinating their messaging and how they're going to get free of this. And also make sure that the people that keep implicating folks who oddly are now passed away earlier this year, that we go ahead and discredit them and make sure that the public doesn't think the things that they're saying that are obviously true are true. How long until we stop believing these guys? Mike Johnson's a liar. Donald Trump has proven it over and over and over again that he's a liar. Why would you believe the next things that he's saying? There was a Bloomberg article that she pointed out. I read some of it because, they only gave me like 70% of it before the paywall came up. Bro, I'm not going to be paying $10 a month for 17 different publications. But here's some information. Here's from Bloomberg. The emails, part of a cache of more than 18,000 obtained by Bloomberg News, show that Maxwell and Epstein were closer in many respects than either publicly admitted. Maxwell opened at least one. This is some good details. Maxwell opened at least one foreign bank account using one of his addresses, was a named director on one of his main revenue generating companies, and traded stock in a company they were both invested in. Details that haven't been previously reported. The pair discussed undergoing a shared fertility procedure long after Maxwell claims she was largely disassociated from him. They corresponded about discrediting women who raised allegations against him. That was the one that I think Ruben was talking about there, including in one exchange where Maxwell said she planned to circulate compromising information on one of his sexual abuse victims. There's never any kind of consciousness, anybody who's surrounding this. If you see these types of things, and if you're that FBI informant named Donald Trump, maybe you want to continue to, release some of this information. The reasons why maybe these emails they didn't want to come forward is because there's more details like these. The emails include a spreadsheet itemizing nearly 2,000 gifts, luxury items, and payments totaling $1.8 million. With donations indicating that they were intended for Epstein's friends, his business associates, and victims. The spreadsheet, which was created by one of Epstein's accountants, included a $35,000 watch that was earmarked for former Bill Clinton aide, a $71,000 purchase at a Lexus dealership for one of his attorneys, which I think we heard about one of those guys. I don't want to say in case it wasn't that one, but there was letters about. Anyways, $71,000 purchase at a Lexus dealership for one of his attorneys, and other items such as lingerie and chocolates, some for teenage girls who later lodged sexual abuse complaints against Epstein and Maxwell. The spreadsheet indicates that Maxwell helped Epstein arrange many of those items, but it doesn't specify whether the intended recipients were ever offered or actually received those gifts, accepted them. The depth of which they were looking to make sure this wasn't going to come forward, or to the extent even after he was busted to come forward, was constant. There's so many things that they're covering up. There's so many names. Why were all those gifts being given to people? Who was being kept silent? It was a story I did a week or two ago, maybe just only a week and a half ago, where they suppressed information about who Jeffrey Epstein sent six-figure paychecks to people to shut the fuck up. Who were those people? You know what? Maybe we should ask that FBI informant, Donald Trump, the guy who knew enough about Epstein to be an FBI informant, according to Mike Johnson, but didn't know enough about Jeffrey Epstein to know anything that was going on. I'm not sure how those two things really match up. This is the things that we should be focusing on. But let's continue to focus on how that cover-up is happening. Did you guys know this? This has been happening the past couple of days when we're paying attention to other things. Democrat James Walkinshaw just won the special election for Virginia's 11th congressional district. He won it in a landslide, bro, 76% of the vote. So he just signed on to that petition that Ro Khanna and Thomas Massey were putting forward to release more of these files. This is in the House. So they need one more signature. I wonder if there's any Republicans, one more Republican that's willing to sign on to this discharge petition to release these files that have so much more information that people are waiting to see, so that we can finally get many of the culprits and people that were involved in this put away and maybe face some, justice. That whole law and order party. The law and order party needs one more person that's in favor of law and order to be a part of releasing these files. And we're inching another step closer. Don't discount the level at which Donald Trump is willing to avoid having anyone else win any more of these special elections, or for any Democrats to win any more seats. I'm telling you, bro, these gerrymandered maps from Texas to Missouri to any state that he keeps telling people to switch it over, I guarantee you, one of the driving factors is to make sure that they don't pick up one more seat, because that one more seat could lead to this being released, and who knows whose ass is on the line, or how many orange asses are on the line. I still believe this is the most important thing that Donald Trump needs to cover up, and not just for him, but for many people who fund him, who support him, who have whose names we don't know, and their influence on our government and the way our economy works, the way our healthcare system works, the way that people have been put in place, the way that these appointments been working, that our foreign policy's been working. There's so many aspects of this, because it all links back to what is this going on with this cover up. This is their most important thing they want to keep away. But here's a little piece of good news. I'm gonna spend a lot of time on this. There's not enough time spent on this. This part actually surprised me. Come on. House Rules Chair Virginia Fox has said that her panel will not turn off the discharge petition as a way to block a floor vote on the bipartisan Epstein bill in the House. House GOP leaders indicated in private conversations with Republicans this week that they will not try to head off the discharge petition in the Rules Committee. And they acknowledge that a floor vote is likely if Massey gets his 218 signatures. That's what 3 people were talking about that apparently had some kind of direct knowledge here. I'll take it for now. We'll see if they stick with it, if they get that one more vote that Thomas Massey and them are looking for. But did you guys realize this happened? Because we keep talking about the House. What about the Senate? Apparently, in a vote in the Senate, those Senate Republicans defeated an effort just 2 days ago by Democrats to insert language into Congress's annual defense authorization bill that would have forced the public release of these case files on this Jeffrey Epstein case. So now the Senate is covering for it directly. The Senate voted 51 to 49 to dismiss these changes to the bill. And Republican Senators Hawley of Missouri and Rand Paul of Kentucky joined with these Democrats in looking to get it released. So, good on them for that. But now the Senate is blocking it. Let's tell you some of the names who decide to put their fucking faces in front of cameras and say that I'm all for covering up for child sex traffickers. And remember their names and anything else that they talk about, and realize that they're covering for pedophiles. Senator Mike Rounds of South Dakota said, this is not the right way to do it. How about you give us another way to do it then? Senate Majority Leader John Thune said earlier this week that the Justice Department has already released tons of files. Hey, John, Mike Johnson already gave us that bullshit excuse and nobody's buying it. And he went on to say, I trust them in terms of having the confidence that they'll get as much information out there as possible in a way that protects the rights of the victims. It's almost like it's a repeated script of this covering for Donald Trump. And the worst part is, even in July, John Thune gave this answer to Brett Baier on Fox News about whether or not this stuff should be released. See if you can find an answer in this word salad.
And see, I think more is always better.
The president posted on Truth Social that he doesn't want the Republican support that are making a big deal out of this. He called it the Epstein hoax. he doesn't really need their support. He's not going to run again in 2028. You need their support.
Right.
Where are you? I mean, does this split the Republican Party?
Well, I think at some point, Brett, there's going to have to be a resolution. And again, the president is the leader of the party. And a lot of those constituents out there who are giving voice to wanting to get more information are his supporters. And so, but I think, you know, yes, we're all interested in making sure that we get the justice is served and that there is full disclosure and there's transparency around this.
Last time we talked,
I think more.
Those are just, promises. I think we're all focused on getting this full disclosure and all that surrounding it. What are you going to do about that? I want to let you guys know that we're focused on it. So does your focus lead to actions? Does your focus lead to just telling us you've got to focus and your actions are doing things like that was in July to what he just did now in September of blocking the release or the amendment that Democrats put forward to add that to a vote that they know they're all going to vote on. Politicians do that all the time to make sure that they release these. Why is that not a bipartisan approach and a goal of theirs? He's focused on it. That is until he has to do something to prove that he's focused on it. John Thune is actively covering up for pedophiles. If he's not, he should prove me wrong. Because he can do the opposite. He can do this thing. He could vote and make it 50-50 and then lead JD Vance to be the one to say, I'm sorry, I'm covering for pedophiles. Okay. What's up, you guys? I literally haven't looked at the chat much. How you guys doing? You guys still hanging out? Still good? We having a good Friday? What are you guys drinking on? Am I getting amped up now? I thought I came in a little bit low energy. I was a little bit tired. I didn't go to sleep till like 1 a.m. last night. But still, I guess the Nas has me. Maybe you guys are on the other direction. Maybe you guys are drinking shots or something like that. Either way, let's go to this last story. I want to make sure you guys continue to keep your updates. As the title of this here stream told you, we got updates all over the place, bro. I want to make sure you see what's happening because you know what else we've been ignoring as we're watching all this coverage about how much people love Charlie Kirk and how much people hate Charlie Kirk and how much people know who he really was versus and vice versa. But what we're forgetting is that our economy is still being destroyed and that the president of the United States is still sitting on that couch, farting and lying at the same time.
Drop the interest rates, then he should have dropped. But he's a year late. And despite that, we have the best economy we've ever had. We have the best stock market we've ever had. In other words, what we've created is so strong. We have $17 trillion going to be invested in this country. Think of it. They didn't have, they had nothing. They had people leaving our country. We have the greatest boon in the history. And that's why the stock market went up 700 points yesterday.
Inflation is down.
Inflation's down. Well, I have low inflation. Yeah. He had the highest inflation in history.
Up to 9. Yeah.
No, he had really in many things 18, 19, 20%. He had the worst inflation in the history of our country. And we have almost no inflation anymore. And if you look at energy, energy is so big, it brings everything down. But if you look at energy, the energy costs are way down. We've done a great job, despite the fact that we should have lower interest rates. Now, we have two things. We've been successful because of the tariffs. It's given us a great power to negotiate with other countries that took advantage of us. Tremendous power. Also, it's brought in trillions of dollars into our country. We have a big case brought by foreign governments because the foreign governments have been ripping us off for years, and it's now in the Supreme Court. That case is really important to win because it's made us a rich country. It's made us a rich country.
He's a liar. The anchor there, Lawrence, there was also added on to it. These interest rates, maybe we're on $17 trillion, bro. These interest rates, though, we need to bring those interest rates down. So you guys, I don't know if you know this, but interest rates are supposed to come down when things aren't that great because it's supposed to help folks in a bad economy. But somehow the economy is booming. We're in a golden age. We got $17 trillion that you haven't seen a fucking cent of. But somehow we got $17 trillion that's flowing in, and we need interest rates to drop. Did you guys know that inflation is down, as Lawrence said? Except Even Donald Trump couldn't piggyback off of that blatant lie. He was like, you know what? I'm sorry. I mean, I don't have much inflation. Here, you know, in case you need someone else to tell you.
And many big retailers like Walmart, Macy's, and Home Depot have acknowledged price increases due to tariffs, but they are all working, they say, to keep prices low where they can. And today's inflation report is one of the most important when it comes to what the Federal Reserve does with interest rates next week. It can impact everything from what you pay for your car loans, your credit card APRs, and even mortgages. And when you take inflation coupled with the latest weaker than expected jobs data, the market believes that the Federal Reserve almost certainly will cut interest rates next week. That means very likely lower cost of your car loans, lower cost of your credit card APRs, and potentially also mortgage rates for people who want to get a new home.
They're literally going to sell the fact that they're going to drop interest rates because of the shit economy to say, look, you're getting lower interest rates as you also don't have any jobs. So think of it this way. At least your interest rates on the car that you can't afford because you lost your job and you can't find another one, at least the interest rates are low. Oh, by the way, you know that whole inflation thing? Maybe someone else will prove it to you guys again too. Wow. Hey, check that out. This is weird. Inflation climbed in August as his tariffs intensified. That's the reality when Donald Trump said that the tariffs are helping this situation. That's when Donald Trump said that inflation isn't going anywhere, except that the reality, likes to argue with his lies. Consumer prices rose 2.9% in August compared to a year ago, marking an uptick in price increases. Here. Uptick means up, and then price increases means up as well, as Trump's tariff policy intensified. The reading matched economists' expectations. The fresh inflation data indicated an acceleration. That's another, that's nothing that goes up from a 2.7% inflation rate recorded in the prior month, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, that place they're looking to clean house of. Price increases remain below the 3% rate recorded in January, the month that Trump took office. But we're in a golden age. We got $17 trillion coming in. Here's some other information that he doesn't want you to read. Now, egg prices, a longtime symbol of rising costs, were flat in the month of August. Great. Still, the price of eggs stands nearly 11% higher than where it was a year ago when they were, campaigning on that. The price of coffee has surged 20% over the past year. Housing costs jumped 0.4% in August, which accounted for the largest share of the overall hike in prices. Food prices rose 0.5% last month, while energy costs climbed 0.7% is what the data showed. Do you remember? I'm not sure if you heard all the lies. He was spitting them out so fast. He mentioned how energy costs are dropping, how food costs are dropping, how housing costs are dropping, when in reality, all those things are not happening. So overall, how about this last slide, in case you guys are tired of me reading and yelling at you. In all, prices climbed 0.4% from July to August, which marked the largest monthly increase since December. Why do we believe liars? Every day he lies. He lies about everything. Hey, guess what? Later today, if he says something else, he's going to be lying then too. Do you know why? I know that because all he does is lie. How about we preemptively stop believing his lies? It's not being polite to just listen to someone lie to you if those lies then affect your life, if you support their lies. He's got more that he was saying on that couch besides the farts that he was dropping on them that I'm sure they want to get away from. But he had more to say.
We've become a rich country. Remember 2 months ago, they said, we found $29 billion, a lot of money. But peanuts compared to that, but they found $29 billion, sir. We don't know where it is. I said, where did it come from? They said, we just don't know. I said, check the tariff shelf. I call it the tariff shelf because the money is so ridiculous. It's enormous. They called me up the next one. Sir, you're right. It came in from additional tariffs. 29 billion. We're a rich, powerful country. And when we're rich, we become a...
You hear that bullshit? Do you hear that? Donald Trump first told you we got $17 trillion coming in. Part of what they what added to that $17 trillion was he spoke to they. Who's they? What are the names? Who are the people that you spoke to? When the guy walked up to you and said, sir, if you don't remember, that's the first tell for the next lie that's coming. Sir, we can't find the billions. And he said, you know what? Check the tariff shelf. Maybe you haven't looked into the tariff shelf because, you know, I have to sell tariffs like a fucking used car salesman. Check the tariff shelf, unnamed official. And then you know what they did? They came back and they said, wow, Mr. Trump, you know what we found? We found $29 billion that we just couldn't find. And these three idiots sat on that couch with that's a true story, Donald, because we lost $29 billion that we couldn't figure out where it was until they went over to the shelf and opened it up and checked it and found gobs of money falling out. Are we going to keep listening to people tell us these stories? Are we going to keep listening to him tell us these stories? I just, why? But Howard Luckner goes on TV and does the same thing.
Now you're going to see factories get built in America at a scale that you have never seen before. Okay, more than $10 trillion of factory builds coming. All right, and so there's huge amount of construction jobs. So I would say the first quarter of next year will be the best quarter of construction jobs this country's ever seen, and that's going to roll all the way through 26. So I think you're going to see GDP growth next year over 4%.
You do 4%, 10 trillion over what period of time, Secretary?
Mr. Donald J. Trump, the President of the United States, during his term.
I want you guys to pay attention to these timeline answers that they give. That was the most basic follow-up question. When? Remember I said, ask anybody who's lying to you or who believes any things that they're saying. Just ask them those questions. Really, what, when, where, why, what, how? How are these things going to happen? We learned that in like 3rd grade, bro. Ask them these questions. And the answer ends up being next year, during Trump's term. And then imagine whether or not that has any kind of financial planning for anyone who's responsible with anything that they've been planning for business, just their life, their income, their jobs. At some point, that's not an answer. Again, it's because he works for this guy. Listen, they're going to ask him. I'm not sure they're even going to ask him, but watch his timeline.
The great, big, beautiful bill that has tax cuts for the middle class. You know, no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. You work
We haven't
overtime.
felt that yet.
You're going to feel it really big. I'll tell you the biggest thing right now, we have to win the Supreme Court case. If we win that case, this country is a rocket ship like no other country ever in the history of our world.
They're not.
We haven't felt it yet, sir. You see him pause? He didn't know it. Shit. You're going to feel it. You're going to feel it, Brian. And then move right on. When, bro? When? It's going to take off like a rocket ship. Did you guys know that we're in the golden age right now, that he brought in $17 trillion that he keeps talking about? How are we going to be a rocket ship next year if we've got 17 trillion right now with 29 billion falling off the tariff shelf that we couldn't find? Doesn't that sound like a rocket ship already? When is the rocket ship is next year, but it's also right now. Which one is it? God, we're so stupid. We're so stupid. Last one, because this is the combination of what they're all talking about. Because they keep talking about the tariff money, which, by the way, in case you forgot, that's coming from our pockets. But here, how about those 22,000 jobs that were lost? When is that going to get better? Because all of this is a disaster.
August job numbers weren't good, 22,000. What do you make of that?
Our economy, the Donald Trump economy, is coming in the beginning of next year. You have to think he's got more than $10 trillion of factories. When those factories get in the ground, they get the permits and the bulldozers start, people are operating those bulldozers, jobs. You're going to be to be a construction worker in America. You're going to be good looking because everybody's going to try to hire you. Those construction workers are jobs. And then when those factories come online, you're going to see 3% GDP growth the rest of this year. And then my look is I think we grow to 4%. You got the $30 trillion U.S. economy growing 4%, pulling away. Finally, why was America always growing kind of like the rest of the world? Because we were exporting our power to the rest of the world. It's time for us to take care of America. That's what President Trump is doing. You're going to see our GDP growth go off the charts.
Mr. Secretary.
You're going to see good stuff going. They literally sound like they're selling you a jalopy. Well, come check out this piece of shit, the back of the yard right here. I tell you what, you may have to kick the tires a couple times. Maybe you have to spin the engine from under the hood. But I tell you what, you're going to be smooth sailing for at least a mile and a half before this shit breaks down on you. They're not even good at this. We're that stupid. But let's talk about how Charlie Kirk was a great human being instead. That's it. This is the stuff we should be paying attention to. This is the stuff we should be paying attention to. This is what they don't want you paying attention to. You know, it was really hard to get all this stuff today, you guys. It was really hard. I had to sift and bypass and dodge and hurdle so much of that other story, so much, because nobody will shut the fuck up about it, just to get to any of the basic things that are happening. So I'm sorry if it was a little bit boring and it wasn't the standard thing that everybody's talking about, but there's a very good reason for that. Happy Friday, everyone. I hope you enjoy your weekend. I hope you continue to pay attention. Every time you hear them tell you there's something else going on that you should be paying attention to, just check your pockets, because they're reaching around and they're stealing your wallet. Just remember that part, because, you know, and pay attention to the prices of things. That's the stealing part. Have a good weekend, you guys. I only drank half of this damn Nas. Imagine what happened if I had the whole thing. Maybe I'll try Full Throttle next week. Someone mentioned Full Throttle. Monster doesn't work for me. Monster, it tastes horrific. There's a couple flavors that are okay, but maybe one of those. You guys reach out to me. Find me on Instagram. Give me some suggestions, because, again, maybe I shouldn't be drinking this shit anymore. I don't know. Who knows? But also, find me on Instagram just to say what's up. Let me know if I got things wrong or crazy. You know what? Maybe just chop it up and tell me the projects that you're working on, because I'm going to get back under the hood of my 84 Corvette this weekend and see if I can get something else done on it. Later on today, you'll see some of these stories go up onto the Watch List channel. Don't forget, you guys, I need those likes. I need those shares. Let them know what we're doing. I mean, that is, you know, unless you want folks to lie to you. See you guys next week. Appreciate you. Have fun. Bye, Ma. She's not here, but still. Bye.